Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. Today I'm going to be sharing with you my favorite curriculum as a lawyer for homeschooling. And the reason I mention that is because I think, as you'll see once we talk a little bit more about what's going on in this curriculum, you'll see why that's relevant. So, the curriculum is the Civics from Oak Meadow, and at some point I'm going to insert the recording of the page where this is available. So I just kind of, I had previously recorded a flip through of this curriculum, and I thought about sharing that again, but it occurred to me don't really get very much information from that. I know that hasn't necessarily been helpful to me when I've been looking at a curriculum for my kids. So I am going to do a bit of a flip through, but about specific parts. And I'm going to show you some of the assignments that my 8th grader has done. So the main reason why I think this is a great curriculum as an attorney is the very comprehensive nature of civics. So it doesn't only talk about, what are the 3 branches of government, what does it mean to be a civic servant. Every 5 or 6 lessons or so, there is a series of Supreme Court cases that the kids look at and research further. So, for example, the first assignment that my 8th grader did was looking at these different landmark Supreme Court cases, and you choose one to look at more in depth, and she chose Korematsu. And so one of the things I was going to show you is her paper that she wrote, where she looked more in depth at the facts of the case. And here it is. She really thoroughly researched it and wrote up this paper, and she really got more of a sense of what was going on in the case. And last year we had watched a George Takei documentary about his time and other Japanese Americans' time in the internment camps, and she had read his graphic novel, which I believe is called "And Then They Came for Us" or something like that. I'll try and link that in the description box down below if you're interested in that. We did it with a Brave writer, and so actually reading the Korematsu case was really a full circle opportunity for her. And many people don't realize that it wasn't overruled until recently. Justice Roberts, I believe it was either 1 or 2 years ago, in an unrelated case, finally overturned that precedent, which said that you can put Japanese Americans into internment camps during World War II. So I felt that was a really strong lesson for her. And this is an example of, there's another type of assignment that they do, which is where they talk about different debate topics. And through my flip through, I talked about how this particular one about NFL football players kneeling, I didn't know if that was something that I personally felt 8th graders would have the capacity to understand the different sides of that issue. So anyway, that's my one critique, I guess, although it's not necessarily a critique, it's just a personal feeling. But anyway, so she chose juveniles accused of a crime being tried as adults, and so she filled out her table on that. And what I particularly like about this curriculum is that it presents facts and precedent, and the kids really have to, as part of these assignments, examine both sides. So there isn't really necessarily which side do you think was right? They really spend a lot of time considering the reasons for both sides. And so I really like that, and I feel like that's a pretty, well-balanced approach. So I have these tabs here to help us today. So this is an example of a lesson page. And so one of the things that my daughter really likes about Oak Meadow in particular is the checklist for each assignment. And this is another one of 3 Supreme Court cases. And so each one comes with a description. And so you'll see this particular case, personally, I wouldn't want younger than 8th grade considering these issues, but I think that this, 14 years old going into high school, this is when you start contemplating some of these bigger issues, and the other thing about when you're homeschooling is if you feel that this isn't something that you want to do with your child, not necessarily this case, but any curriculum or any component, you can just skip over it. Your kid doesn't have to do it. But in any event, my daughter chose the New Jersey versus TLO case, which was about students in school. The officials don't need to have a warrant to search their things as long as the search was reasonable. And there's several cases in this book that deal with teenagers in schools. And so I think that that's, something that would be interesting to any kid, whether they're homeschooled or not, knowing what their rights are. And so this particular page comes, I believe, in every one of these landmark case lessons. And so one thing that I would want to point out, and eventually if I ever do talk to Meadow, I would like to point out to them is the summary of the decision. So the term for the summary of the decision is called the holding. And my daughter had some issues with broken links in finding the description of these cases. So she did have to look at the actual Supreme Court case itself. And, some of these things can be 50 pages long or even longer. And so in order to basically get to this or this, you could just look up holding in the name of the case. And so I think, I haven't looked at this book closely, but I don't think that term appears. And so that's just something I would add. But anyway, I think it's, good for the kids to understand the difference between a dissenting opinion and a majority opinion, and what it means when a vote is 6-3, what year a case was decided in. These are all basic things that are important for an understanding of our legal system. And, this is our Supreme Court, so it does affect our entire country when these decisions are made. So, and then there's other little pages like this that they fill out. And so another thing, another aspect of this book that I really like is the emphasis on explaining different founding documents, for example, the Constitution. And in addition to highlighting language and having different terms, and it breaks down the different parts of the Constitution. One of the things that we've been working on this year and, in years past, but in addition this year, is understanding the different parts of the Constitution and the Bill of Rights. And so these I printed off of education.com, but I'm really trying to teach my kids to understand, what are your constitutional rights under the Bill of Rights and also the other amendments, and what does that mean? And, some of the cases in the Meadow book discuss specific ones, First Amendment, freedom of speech issues, Fourth Amendment, needing a warrant and things like that. And so I really like that it gets more into the background of the Constitution, aside from also zooming in on specific cases. And so the last section I wanted to show you and highlight is this lesson's Supreme Court cases, which are Miranda v. Arizona, which created the Miranda rights, that you have the right to remain silent, things like that. Texas v. Johnson, which was about burning the United States flag. That used to be a crime. And if you burned a flag, then you would have to go to jail or whatever the case may be. And so I think it's really, interesting for the kids and people to consider that before this case, you didn't have that, as a means of freedom of speech. And I think that this probably came up as a result of war protests or something like that. I don't remember the facts of the case, but I know that anti-war demonstrations would commonly employ the use of that tactic. And then the last case here, West Virginia v. Barnett, had to do with, whether students and teachers have to salute the flag. Is that required? Can you require it? And of course, there's an interesting parallel there with the earlier debate issues, which we looked at in this book about, kneeling during the anthem and things like that. And so there's a common thread of these different rights that people have, including your student. So that's kind of the extent of the flip through that I wanted to do on that. And then I wanted to share a couple of particular assignments. So one of the lessons is about disability awareness. And so you can see my daughter responded to whatever the prompt was about having a meeting for disabled people. And so I don't know how in-depth the lesson goes aside from requiring research, but every lesson does have a reading passage that the student first reads before jumping into the assignments. So this may come straight from that. Things such as, ADA, wheelchair accessibility, and things like that. So this is one of her written assignments. And here's the other part of Korematsu. She wrote a first draft before she wrote that longer one. So the first part of her lesson 9 was this assignment, and then she wrote up a paper about the Supplemental Security Income Program. And so when I particularly saw this, I felt that I needed to share my feelings about this curriculum, because I think it just really does a great job of covering a lot of different bases and things that our kids, should know. These are good life things that you should know. This isn't only isolated textbook book knowledge that you're never going to use again. This also creates, I think, a sense of empathy, understanding of people who need these programs, and helps us understand, what do tax dollars or other programs, what are they created in society, and what sort of social safety nets are a good idea, and things like that. And then this is related to one of the worksheety things she did. And then another assignment that she did was about researching your ancestors. And so she called my grandmother, who just turned 90, and interviewed her, and, learned some more about her family, but also, did that for her schoolwork. And I think that's pretty standard type of thing that you would have to do in a school setting. So I feel like that's another example of a directly relevant personal knowledge thing, but also something that, it's good for our kids to have those types of skills: interviewing, recording information, researching, things like that. So that is pretty much what I wanted to cover. If you guys have any questions, feel free to leave them in the comments, and I'll do my best to answer them. I think I'm going to insert the webpage from Oak Meadow here so that you can see the different parts, and I'll just leave that at the end of the video. I'm not an Oak Meadow affiliate. I have applied, but who knows if they'll choose me or not. I am solely sharing this because I have found it as an attorney to be very high quality, and I'm really glad that my 8th grader, she actually picked this because I picked something different. She didn't particularly like it. So I like it a lot, and I plan to use it with my other kids. So I hope you enjoyed this video, and if you liked it too, please hit like and subscribe. Thanks for watching.